So
Yeah.
instead of just that damn debt or the name of the credit card, I really help them get in touch with, okay, what was going on during that transition in your life? Was it a
Yeah.
health crisis? Did someone die?
Yeah.
Were you grief and bereavement? Were
Right.
you trying to go back and get a new degree? Were you leaving the corporate world to start your own business? What was
It's
going
transitions.
on? Yeah, so and when people rename it, all of a
Yeah.
sudden they want to honor it, and they look at the number and they look at the interest rates and they
Yeah.
come up with a good, and they if it's a good interest rate, they keep it, and they come up with a payment plan that works for them. So renaming is really, that's like a transition from money practices. It's
Yeah.
part of the bookkeeping. We talked about money dates, but in the money date section, you learn a bookkeeping system,
Yeah.
or you have a bookkeeper that you work closely with. I used to be really dogmatic. Everyone had to do their own bookkeeping year.
Welcome to AFO Wealth Management Forward, a podcast powered by Arrowroot Family Office that's at the intersection of accounting, wealth management, behavioral finance, technology, and entrepreneurship. We help accounting firms and financial advisors grow their practice by going beyond the numbers as we learn from industry leaders and subject matter experts to discover the secret to their success. A podcast that highlights everything from the transformative power of AI to embracing the human-first approach of behavioral finance to help you understand the psychological and emotional relationships to money and meaning. Here is your host, Rory Henry, director at Arrowroot Family Office and author of Holistic Guide to Wealth Management.
All right. Hello, everyone. I have another phenomenal guest joining me today. I've been waiting to have her on the show for a while. She's got a master's degree in somatic psychology. She's a financial therapist. She's the author of The Art of Money books. She has a mentorship program for therapists, coaches, and financial professionals. I'm excited to have her on the show today. So without further ado, let me introduce our guest, Bari Tessler. Bari, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Well, for our audience who don't know you, I know you've been called the mother of financial therapy. Can you give us maybe that origin story and tell our audience a little bit about your background?
Sure, that Rick Kaler loves to call me the mother of financial therapy, which is wonderful. We are debating between mother, grandmother. I'm in my 50s. I have a teenager, but I have friends that have grandkids right
Yeah.
now. So I originally trained, as you already said, as a therapist and as a somatic therapist, which
Yeah.
simply means body-centered.
Body.
So integration of mind and body. And I spent my 20s working in the mental health field and working in hospice. And I thought my topics were going to be around intimacy and couples and relationships and also grief and
Yeah.
death and never money. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until my student loan came due that I realized it was this huge epiphany moment of, wait a second, I got a master's degree in psychology and we never talked about money.
Yeah.
How is this even possible?
Possible.
Right. And so I just decided to learn everything that I could about money from the ground on up, though. Right. So
Yeah.
I wound up learning bookkeeping, running a bookkeeping business. I wound up then just transitioning into working with couples and supporting them. And pretty early on, I integrated all of the practical tools and skills that I was learning as a bookkeeper and doing
Yeah.
financial management and teaching QuickBooks with the emotional, psychological side of things. And in 2001, started teaching financial therapy and in tiny little groups of 10 people. And then that grew to 20 and that grew to 50. And then eventually
Yeah.
that grew to online and, much larger groups of a few hundred people each year.
Yeah.
But financial therapy was just, it was surprising to me, and no one was using that term. There was one other person at the time in Canada calling themselves a financial therapist, and I always need to give my husband credit because I literally came home one day, I had a mentor ask me to give a talk, and I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "I want you to give a talk about your methodology," and I said, "What methodology?" And she said, "You have one,"
Yeah.
and we put up all this white paper and went to it, and we came up with the 3 phases of my work, which now are money healing, money practices, and money maps. But back in the day, it was financial therapy, values-based bookkeeping, and life vision planning.
Wow.
And it was my husband who, in one brilliant moment said, "You're doing financial therapy." And I said, "What did you just say?
What'd she
What did
say?
you just say?" And, and I looked it up and I just realized he's a brilliant namer. He always
Yeah.
has been. And so I started teaching financial therapy, which simply is an integration of financial literacy and emotional
Yeah.
literacy. That's the simplest way I can say it. So
Yeah.
that's a teeny bit about the origin
Well,
story.
let's talk about that emotional literacy, because you were a bookkeeper at once and you
Yeah.
integrated that emotional literacy into your practice. Those in our audience, are good at the numbers. They're good at putting together plans and those pie charts and those debits and credits. Can you maybe speak to those in the audience that maybe are a little reticent to adopt approach like this because it is too woo-woo that we talk about, and
Well,
why it's important to do so?
yes. Well, first, I want to say it's also important for folks who are great at numbers and great at spreadsheets and great at forecasting and planning. Some of those folks may never want to incorporate
Yeah.
money psychology, into their practices. The thing is, though, is that most of the people that I know, when they're looking for a bookkeeper or a financial coach or a financial planner, they want someone who they can feel safe with.
Yeah.
They want someone who's a good teacher. They
Mhm.
want someone who is savvy and smart, certainly, but also has a good bedside manner,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Also someone who um can just sit with them. Again, now roles can get blurred. And so that's the thing where, I got a master's in psychology. Then I was running a bookkeeping business for
Yeah.
other therapists and artists and coaches. And I always say I learned way more by doing someone's books and seeing their numbers and seeing where they're
They
spending
tell
and
a story.
oh, it's a whole story and cash flow and everything.
Yeah.
Are you an accountant looking to generate more revenue and secure your future success as automation and artificial intelligence revolutionize the accounting profession? If so, contact us at AFO Wealth Management Forward. We specialize in helping accountants and advisors just like you build a custom brand to pinpoint your optimal clientele, generate highly qualified leads through our data-driven digital marketing, and execute wealth management growth services to bring more value to your firm and your client's life. Our strategic approach to branding, marketing, and wealth management is carefully tailored to attract ideal clients, increase customer retention rates, and cultivate lasting relationships with clients across generations. Visit wealthmanagementforward.com to book your free consultation to find out how you can elevate your practice.
Rather than if I was doing therapy at that time, I was 28 to 32 years old. So I wasn't
Yeah.
really ready to be a therapist. But I always say I learn more about people's money relationship and their dynamics and their beliefs and their values by doing their bookkeeping,
Yeah.
right?
But
So
they look at someone's books and their calendar, you can tell a lot about a
you,
person.
you can tell so much about someone. So I think there's, you don't just decide, well, you do decide one day, hey, I realize there's more going on to the story than the numbers. The
Yeah.
numbers are very, very, very important. But there's, our money stories, there's our money emotions, there's our money habits and patterns. Now, not all bookkeepers are going to want to get into the money psychology side, but I will tell you, I know many financial planners and bookkeepers who realize how emotional money is. So one of the only stats that I use, because I'm not academic in any way,
Yeah.
is, and Rick Taylor and I go back and forth. Is it
Yeah.
85%? Is it 90? Is it 85%? That, so somewhere between 85 and 95% of our money decisions are based on our emotions.
Emotions.
So it would be beneficial to us to learn what set of emotions comes up for us. It's all different, but it's the
Yeah.
same set of emotions that come up in every other area of life,
Yeah.
which was surprising to me. I thought they would be different. They're not different. It's the shame, it's the
Yeah.
regret, it's the anger, it's anxiety, it's the sadness, and then it's all the good stuff. It's the
Yeah.
joy, it's the hope, and everywhere in between. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, because I think, as you stated, not everybody wants to become a financial therapist, but we all might want to do this practice on ourselves and uncover our money stories, our relationship to money. So let's dive in there and talk
Yeah.
about money stories and that relationship to money, and maybe a process that people can go through to start uncovering, the cultural aspects, the relational aspects when it comes to money.
Yeah, so this is a whole many, many, many chapters in my books
Yeah.
and a whole 4 months, right, in my year-long program. But this is how we begin. Number one is just stopping and pausing. Well, okay, stopping and pausing in all the money moments to just start to gather data. What's
Yeah.
going on? What am I noticing? And it's helpful to slow down. Because usually we're moving so fast. We just,
Right.
get online, suddenly we realize we're online shopping, or we go to sit down and pay our bills and we're doing them really speedy fast. Or so it's good for us to slow down. We're about to make a money decision. We're in the car dealership or online, doing some online shopping,
Yeah.
all these little moments. So one of the very first tools that I give that leads to understanding our money story is what I call a body
Body
check-in.
chicken. Yeah.
It's the very first tool. You know it. I love it.
Yeah.
And so, other financial coaches, they start with the numbers first. Let's get on a bookkeeping
No.
system. And I love bookkeeping systems. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. They were life-changing for me. But I start with it, more of the somatic, the body-centered tools. So you gather data in the
And
middle.
that's what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I doing? And a mindfulness practice.
Yeah, well, exactly. There's all different versions of it.
Yeah.
What am I doing? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? Another version is what's happening in my body? Do I notice
Yeah.
any sensations? Or some people don't know what that means. Some people can tune into physically what's going on, legs crossed, jaw tight.
Yeah.
Or
Or what memories are coming up.
what's memories coming
Yeah.
up and what's the feeling.
Yeah.
So what is the feeling or feelings what are the emotions that are happening in this moment? You don't need to change them. You just get to be curious and notice. And that's a huge gift in itself. And that's mindfulness. People call it meditation. People call it mindfulness practice. I call it a body check-in.
Yeah.
Right. And I invite people to do that before a money conversation or decision, or in the middle, in the heat of the moment, and after as a debriefing. How did that go? What did I learn? What did it remind me of? What could I do different or better next time?
Yeah.
So that for me is the awareness part of the practice that leads to understanding, that leads to shifts. But in that moment, you will start to have memories, and memories are everything about your money story. Our money story is made up of who raised us, what class, what ethnicity, what family lineage, where did our parents or grandparents or great parents where did they come from?
Yeah.
Their stories, their stories. And, were you a family where everyone worked, and got the pension? That doesn't really exist that much anymore. Or
Right.
did you want to start your own business? And was that just
Family
such
of
an
entrepreneurs. Yeah.
did you want? Exactly. So money stories also your strengths, your challenges, your money habits, your financial identities. And these money stories can change. You can rewrite them. We can, create new financial identities and so on. I'll give one tiny little story. As a kid, I was identified pretty early as the spender of the family. And so was my dad, my mom, and my brother and sister. They were more frugal. They were
Yeah.
savers, right? And it took me a while to realize you can grow out of that, or you can grow beyond that. And in my 30s, I really learned, once I got past graduate school, beyond making $11 an hour,
Yeah.
and started actually earning a nice livelihood, then I really started to learn how to save as well. And I realized I enjoy spending. It doesn't mean I overspend or always overspend or even go into debt. There are a lot of things that I like, right? Or I have a lot of
Yeah.
desires. But at the same time, you can also learn how to save as well. So your financial identity is not just one thing. It's not static.
Yeah.
But all of this is shaped in childhood.
Yeah. But aren't
Yes.
those words key, Barry? Like, instead of saying I am a spender, is like I'm a person who spends money, right? It's if you label yourself, or I'm a person I'm frugal, right? If you it doesn't leave you much room for improvement. So, do we want to maybe choose our words carefully when talking about our money habits?
So I love that. Yeah, well, I mean, words are very important. Language is important. Setting intention, what we say, what words we
Yeah.
use. My husband used to say, I think we can't afford it. And I would say, actually, we're just choosing our resources in other ways right now. And we're
I like
choosing
the framing.
priorities, right? This was years ago. We're choosing priorities, or we're spending in accordance. Anyway, yeah, I think words are important. And we're many, many, many things. But
Yeah.
so you're right. I think we got labeled, and it was kind of a judgmental, negative thing. I was labeled as a spender instead of, wait a second. Some people can be so frugal that they don't enjoy it all, or they don't spend on themselves, or they don't get any self-care, or you can be extreme in any way. So that's true. I don't want us to get stuck in labels. And when we're learning about ourselves, it's okay to say, oh, I am more of on the spending end of the spectrum, and I need to add in some more learning and teaching, and I need to grow my muscles around save, and learn how to do that more. Or I need to learn how to, increase income, or, there's so many different parts of our relationship to money. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. So let's move on because I love your money date philosophy. Yeah. So I think that's the next step in, I picture me sitting at a table with my checking account and Lionel Richie playing, and I got a nice dinner set for like that money date. So can you talk to our audience, Barry, about, that?
Yes, I want to wrap up the money healing just a
Okay,
little
go
bit
ahead.
more money stories, just so people know. So to go back just for a second, and then we'll head towards money date.
Yeah.
When you're just first bringing attention to your money story, because if you've gone to therapy or gone to a coach, you are exploring yourself on a deeper level. What do I do well? Where do I feel stuck? What are my habits and patterns? So we do go to our childhood and find out, what patterns got stuck, or where did we make declarations that aren't serving us any longer, or where are we still the rebellious teenager walking into the Apple store, or where, right? There's just a lot to learn. Again, we all have strengths, we all have challenges. Usually people come in and want to tell me all the bad stuff about how they're terrible with money, and I always send them off with, tell me 5 good things, five
I like
10
that.
things that you do well around money. It could be, I really enjoy tipping and I'm a really good
Yeah.
tipper. Or I was a single mom and I raised my son and he's a really wonderful young man, and he's in his 20s now. We do have things around money.
Yeah.
Really,
It's the
we
positive
do.
psychology part. Yeah, I love
We
that.
do. Okay. And just, there's things around forgiveness and money healing rituals. I mean, I have a
Yeah.
lot of creativity and there's a lot of work. And just to know, you don't just wake up and you don't have any money emotions anymore. They're done. But you can learn how to tune it down, tune down the volume. You can learn how to catch the challenges or the top, or, you're going into a money conversation. You can do the mindfulness before, during, and after. You can learn from so-called money mistakes. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of learning that can happen in the money stories, but it's not one day you don't have any money emotions anymore.
Right.
We're humans. But you can turn down the volume. You can, you can catch them a lot sooner and do things differently and set yourself up so that you can have even loving and compassionate, not fighting, swearing
Conversations.
conversations with your spouse.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on there, and it's a journey, but it doesn't mean you just wake up and you're done with your money stories. Or, I learned
It's
new things.
ongoing.
I wrote my book 10 years ago, right? Or I'll learn that, next year I'll probably learn something new about my money story.
Yeah.
So it's, you don't just have, and you don't have to finish all of your money story work and money healing work before you get to money dates, right? We take that with us, we take the tools, and then we head into, let's get into some practical stuff now, right?
Yeah.
And that's money dates.
Yeah. Well, let's
And-
get into money dates and that
Okay.
practical stuff. Barry. So for our
Yeah.
audience, let's set the stage here. Paint that picture of what that money date looks like.
Okay, so you get to create, you get to craft to create it. It's different for everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, money date is just saying, it's just sitting down saying, hey, money, what is one next step on my money to-do list that I can do right now? But that might work for some people, but for a lot of my folks, they want to light the candles. They, what you would call woo-woo.
Yeah.
It's just like second nature for me. It's, get out your mocha, get out your snacks, play whatever kind of music is going to put you in the mood. If you want to calm down, if you want to, I mean, I've heard everything. People play all different kinds of music, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a way in my world to ritualize it, because this is so boring and dry or scary or terrifying, or we realize we have ADHD tendencies and it's just hard for us to sit down.
Yeah.
We procrastinate a lot. So I have a lot of tools and creative ways to do a money date. But a money date is really just, hey, money, what is, one next step? And you may even have to take some time to write out your money to-do list, but we always have that list.
Mhm.
It's ongoing, it's never ending, right? And so a money date can be 5 minutes to start. It could be 15 minutes. It could be a whole 30 minutes. And money dates are initially just with yourself, sitting down and saying, what is one next step? Okay, I got to call in. I want to learn a new bookkeeping system. So I'm going to spend 15 minutes going online and looking at YNAB and QuickBooks, right?
Yeah.
Or I'm going to hire a bookkeeper to do it for me. But again, I'm going to get a good referral from someone local or from a colleague. Or, there's lots of things in our
Yeah.
money life where I need to move money over. There's always things to do. So money dates are really, they can be short and sweet, 5, 10, 15 minutes just to create those grooves, spontaneous, or you can schedule them, Money Monday. I always like to do things on Friday, the end of the week.
Yeah.
Or Sunday to prepare for the week. So I like to have longer 30-minute money dates. And then beyond having money dates with yourself, you also can have money dates with your
Partner.
spouse
Yeah.
over a glass of wine, over dinner. Those are some of my favorite. Those are more visioning money dates
Yeah.
that me and my husband. And then you can have family money dates. We bring in our teenager and we've brought him in for years and years and years. He gets to have a say, not on everything, but yeah, he gets,
Yeah.
I'll give you one example. Recently he came to us. He was like, this is a year ago or two. Stop shopping at Whole Foods, mom and dad. You're spending too much money. Let's go to Trader Joe's. They've better
Yeah.
snacks. And we wound up like,
He's right.
he's right. And, it was a really good savvy money move. And
Yeah.
because why did he want to do that? There are many reasons, but he wanted that money, that extra money for clothes and, other things, right?
Yeah.
That are more priorities or values for him. But
For
we all
him.
need to negotiate and discuss them. And
Yeah.
we do that. So money
As a
dates are
family.
money conversations, planning. They're also just checking off the to-dos on your list.
Yeah.
And you do a body check-in before and
Oh, I
after.
love it. I love it.
Right. Yes. But for me, it's always mochas or some kind of dark chocolate,
Yeah.
yes.
I love the family conversation here, as we know that, money and finances are a taboo topic, Barry, and we're out there championing this cause of having this conversation. So I think it's a great way to get kids started from an early age. What age did you start doing this, or what age did you start advising parents to incorporate these money conversations with their kids?
Yeah, there's a really good book. I don't agree with her on everything, and I'm forgetting her name, but she goes through at different ages, and she said, these are the kind of things that you can talk, these are kind of money topics,
Yeah.
conversations you can have with your kids at different ages. I started having money conversations with my son when he was 3 or 4. 3, we would be in Target and he wanted everything. So we just put everything on his wish list. Like we would go through the aisles. It
Yeah.
was just a fun, I want everything. Okay, we'll put it on your wish list,
Yeah.
or then the next conversation was, okay, now we're, getting shoes and we're going to get 2, and he had like 5 pairs. And so we were talking about which ones he wanted the most. He was really young,
Yeah.
And so I've had age appropriate money conversations. Then it was, okay, what do you want for your birthday? Well, how about you save up for some of that, and then all the grandparents will chip in. And then he started making some money. So it's just been, I've written about this, and I haven't written many money and parenting blogs, maybe 5.
Mm-hmm.
When I was writing a second book, my publisher suggested that as one option. And I just said, not until my son's 25, do I feel like I'm going to be able to teach about this. So
Yeah.
I really think it also depends on your kid, right? The one thing I didn't agree with her in the book, she said, when your kid asks how much money do you make, don't answer him. And I thought, wait a second, it depends on the kid.
Yeah.
It depends on how they're asking. Now, when my son asked me that question, I didn't just blurt out a number. I said, I'm going to tell you more about our monthly expenses.
Yeah.
So I could explain what this large number meant
Yeah.
to him. And we can discuss that. Like, this is, and we had one of those conversations years ago, and and it made him realize, I'm done with Montessori private school. I want public school. It's too much money, and I'd rather use that for travel. So, right?
He looked at the trade-off. I like it.
It's a trade-off.
Yeah.
And so again, it depends on your kid, what they're interested in. I don't think it's the same for everyone, but I've been having some kind of just open money conversations. I've been doing this work for 25 years now, and it's not as much of a taboo as it was back then, especially in the last 10 years. Financial therapy, financial coaching, financial planning. I get Google,
Alerts
daily about financial therapy, and, wasn't even a thing back then. So it's changing. And I think more and more people are wanting to learn about the relationship to money, know that it's not the numbers, know that they need to integrate the financial literacy with the emotional literacy.
Emotional
So
literacy.
people are talking about it a lot more. But one thing I'll say though is, I think when I started learning anything or any big topic back in the day, I just wanted to talk about it with everyone. And I think with money, I think it's important to find safe and brave people.
Yeah.
And, as Brene Brown says, people have earned the right, have earned your trust.
Yeah.
And so do you talk about money with all your siblings and everyone in your family and all your friends? And I mean, yes, I want money conversations happening, but
Yeah.
maybe we start with one question,
Yeah.
and that's why my second book is all journaling questions, tons of journaling questions. So it could just be talking with one of your siblings of, hey, what do you remember your role was growing up? I had already mentioned this earlier.
Yeah.
Did you see that we had different roles? How do you think that came to be? How were, just so starting with one
One
question.
question.
One question. Yeah.
Yeah. What are some other questions there that you can think of that are
Here's a few. I mean, I have hundreds, right?
Yeah.
That's why it was supposed to be a little journal, and it became a 200-page book because I already had all of these questions. I love journaling questions.
Yeah.
So one of the first questions that I used to always ask is a multiple set of questions, which is sit down and write down, what is your relationship to earning money? This is for yourself. What is your relationship to spending money? What is your relationship to saving and giving,
Investing.
owning and investing? And that was one of the first ones. Then there's other questions just about, so what was your mom's relationship to
Yeah.
money? Yeah, what were her strengths and challenges?
Yeah.
What about dad or who, grandparents or mom and mom, whoever was raising you, right? And what religion, if were you raised in a religion, or write more about your lineage and any messages there around money that were passed down,
Yeah.
or, so I mean, I have tons of questions. Those are just some.
It makes me want to create a technology that's an ancestry.com, but does more of the money story aspects of that genealogy. I think that would be a great way for people to frame, like, oh, this is what that map looks like of my family.
Yeah, and there's usually some hard stuff and some pain and
Yeah.
some challenges. And then I want to know, how did your family get through it? Or tell us some stories around did they leave a country and have to start, or escape a country and have to start over here? And
Yeah.
what was that like for them? Right? And then where's the strength in your family? And where's, there's, I always want both. So I did a whole money memoir series for years. I'm not doing it so much anymore, where I would interview people from all different class backgrounds, all different lineage, ethnicity backgrounds, and I asked them all sorts of stories, So what's your first money memory?
Yeah. It
What
was
was
influential. Yeah.
what was a really challenging money, a really big money challenge that you got through, and how did you get through it? How
Yeah.
did you do that? And who supported you, and who did you reach out to for support? And what else? I'm forgetting. Yeah, I mean,
I
it
mean,
was
it's great being for those in the audience. And for me, I've utilized these type of questions because it allows us to hear a story, and people want to tell their story,
right.
Bari, and we get to connect on such a deeper, more emotional level. I don't remember everybody's net worth or, what their income is, but I remember these stories that I hear from clients. And so it's illuminating. And for them, many times it's the first time they're talking about this, because we just don't ask those questions. And so it's a great way to really help people uncover, the past, what matters most to them, asking these types of questions.
I think asking the questions are so important, and being able to tell stories. I'm a big storyteller. That's so important to me as well. But I also think what we've already spoken about is the body check-in, or whatever your version is of that. So you'd asked me this earlier, whether it's a bookkeeper or financial planner, even just asking them, how are you doing today? Or how was your day? Or how are you feeling right now? Or are you feeling nervous? Are you feeling excited? Giving them a little bit of space to talk about their internal emotional worlds,
Their current state. Yeah.
their current state. And because a lot of people, my God, I used to be so scared to look at my financial, my investment statements. My eyes would just glaze over, and I would, it was like I couldn't see anymore. And I had so much anxiety, and I always had to be like, excuse me a moment, I'm going to go to the bathroom and do a body check and come back in. And so as a bookkeeper, a financial planner, just to even slow down and pause and give them a moment to just say, oh, I'm really excited about this. This is easy for me, right? Numbers, I love numbers. Or someone, if you're with a couple, one may feel like, yeah, I love numbers. And the other person may be like, I don't understand this. I don't feel smart about money.
We call it the non-CFO spouse. And
Okay.
it's so crucial to engage them. And many times we talk to them about the values approach, or the whole
Yes.
life approach, and the other aspects of well-being, to get them engaged in the conversation before we start going into the financial aspects of their life.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's go on to the third one now.
Okay.
Here, Bari. Money maps is the third
Yes.
approach here. The money areas. I know you touched on briefly. You have earning and income. We talk about spending and expenses, saving, debt, and investing are the five money areas that you touch on.
Well, for me, money map includes that, but money mapping is really doing a budget in a different way.
Yeah.
And it's doing a 3-tier budget. So helping people identify what their basic needs are at this phase of their life, right? Different than 2 years ago, 5 years ago, or what they'll be. Also, second tier is comfortable lifestyle. Third is ultimate. It's just a great exercise to sit down and say, what do you consider bottom line basic needs? What are the numbers? Add that up. Let's see what that is. And then, do that with comfortable. And comfortable, are you traveling? Have you paid down debt? Are you giving more? What's going on in ultimate? So that's one piece of it. And just that in itself. I mean, I've had people who get so stuck. They're like, I can't do the ultimate. I can't vision. I was told not to dream. Early on, that was squashed. Okay, so let's not do the ultimate. Let's just do the first 2 tiers for now. Or I worked with a woman who she couldn't even sit down to do this exercise until she did the ultimate version for her mom. So her mom was all luxury ultimate. And so she did she wrote down all the numbers and expenses that her mom would do, right? And what her mom's lifestyle is, right? Then the
So
other
she was a
side,
bookkeeper for her mom first.
well, she had to do the numbers and see what that was.
Yeah.
The other end, she was an artist, and there were a lot of activists, and they were all living very minimally. And so she had to do a basic bottom line, set of numbers for that part of her. And then she was able to come in the middle and say, this is a lifestyle that feels good and right for me. This is where I'm at. Okay, so these are my numbers, right?
Yeah.
These are my set of intentions. So it's just a way to help people. Number one, also, this is part of the money practices that I didn't mention. I love renaming everything, as you know, and you already brought this up. Words are
Labels,
important. Labels are important, right? But so let's pick some names that feel good. So instead of a budget, maybe it's in the financial planning world, they call it a spending plan, or I used to call it a map of intention, or I call it a money map. Just rename everything. Rename some of your expense categories. I've had people really get in touch with their values, get way more connected to what's important to them, stop with that extra unconscious spending just by looking at their values, renaming things. And I have a whole chapter about that in my book, but people also love to rename their debt. So instead of just that damn debt or the name of the credit card, I really help them get in touch with, okay, what was going on during that transition in your life? Was it a health crisis? Did someone die? Were you grief and bereavement? Were you trying to, go back and get a new degree? Were you leaving the corporate world to start your own business? What was going
Transitions.
on? Yeah. So, and when people rename it, all of a sudden they want to honor it, and they look at the number, and they look at the interest rates, and they come up with a good, and if it's a good interest rate, they keep it, and they come up with a payment plan that works for them. So renaming is really, that's like a transition from money practices. It's part of the bookkeeping. We talked about money dates, but in the money date section, you learn a bookkeeping system. Or you have a bookkeeper that you work closely with. I used to be really dogmatic. Everyone had to do their own bookkeeping year. I don't anymore, but for me, it was such a mindfulness practice
Yeah.
I learned so much about my money psychology and my habits and
Yeah.
patterns by doing my own bookkeeping. And I did it for well over a decade. So
Yeah.
every few days I would sit down at my QuickBooks and enter my receipts and enter my income. And at the end of the month, it just was.
It's the IKEA effect, right? You treasure that furniture more because you built it.
Right? Or you forgot something you spent on, and then okay, was this a good purchase?
Right.
Was it not a good purchase? Am I getting the value out of it or not? It just was such a great practice to do before I handed it over to a bookkeeper.
Yeah.
But I do, in the money practice section, I do say, please learn a bookkeeping system. And that's the whole thing. So back to money maps, it's about doing these 3-tier exercises, just understanding where are you at right now.
Yeah.
Are you in a growth period in your business and you're earning more and saving more and giving more and traveling more, right? Or are you kind of in the middle? Or are you deep down having your own little recession year in a business,
Yeah.
right? And having to dip into some savings. Right? So that's part of it. But the other piece of this that's so important is, how do you make good money decisions? So this is one of the things that I love to do before I send someone off to a financial planner or working in tandem with a financial planner, is the nitty gritty. Because financial planners, I find, tend to do more longer term plans, or even
Yeah.
like 3, 5, 20, 50,
Right.
right? So a lot of people are like, well, how do I even know I'm making a good money decision? Or with my year-long program, they say, I don't even know if I can afford this, right? So there's a lot in here in the money practice section, you need to know your numbers.
Know your numbers.
Through
Yeah.
and through. And not always like to the penny.
To the T, right? Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
some phases you need to be, you not tight and rigid, but some phases you do, right? You need to
If
be.
you're digging yourself out of the hole, we might need to look at every single, penny there.
Exactly. And so you need to know your numbers. Like, there's many parts of making a good money decision. You need to know your numbers. You need to know your values and priorities at this time.
Yes.
You need to know what phase of life you're in. You need to know what lifestyle you're going for, right? You also need to be working with the emotions, right? Because this is where you find yourself late at night doing online shopping. And that's where you do the body check-in. And you also ask, am I thirsty? Am I hungry? Do I just need to go get a snack? Right? Am I
Yeah.
really pissed about something and I'm like wanting that dopamine hit?
Yeah.
Right?
I think we are algorithms. And if we don't do that mindfulness, that algorithm is going to take over and we go on autopilot. And then all of a sudden we potentially are left with a mess. And then, okay, how do we get there? So doing that check-in, that body check-in, doing that mindfulness will allow us to find out what our emotions are, what our thoughts are. And then we can make better decisions, because then we've did some introspection on where we're at.
And we don't always get it right? Sometimes we have to course correct. That's
Yeah.
okay. We learn from it. Most times when I find myself online shopping, I do the body check-in and I put that in a tab. And then I realize, 24 hours later, I come back and I realize, you know what? I don't need another bathing suit. I don't.
There should be, on the TikTok and Instagram apps, there should be like a mindfulness button. Like, okay, I'm not going to buy right now. I'll give you 24 hours, right?
Yes.
Or give me just a 5 minutes. Let me do my check-in.
I think 24 hours is really good. I think 24 hours is really good. You come back and sometimes it's, I need that. I want that. I have the money for it. I have the cash flow for it, etc.
Yeah.
So I do. And then there's a series of questions that I bring to small, medium, and large decisions. We were once in a car dealership and I had a little freak out.
Yeah.
So I did a body check-in and I went through the whole process. Where's this in my body? My breath is starting to go up my throat, up my head. It's anxiety. What is it reminding me of? This is years ago. I don't like making fast money decisions when it's a bigger purchase, when it's a medium to high.
Did you have a bad car experience before, Mary?
It was more just, I don't think it was that. It wasn't.
Was it you have a big purchase then?
It was just a big purchase, it was just like, it just scared me, which was interesting because a few years later, and my husband was leading the way, the car purchase. A few years later, we bought a house in 36 hours and I led the way. And it was.
So why was it different with the car then?
I think cars kind of, I've gotten
Cars depreciate, homes appreciate.
you walk out the lot, it depreciates. That's
Right.
part of it, you
Yeah.
know. I'm not that into cars. I have a little teeny Fiat that I love right now that's paid off, and it's electric Fiat.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was just so in that moment though, I did the body checking in the bathroom. What does it remind me of? And then my next step was, all right, I'm gonna go have a money date with my husband in the car dealership. And we had a 20-minute money date. Do we have the cash flow for this? Um, is this in alignment with our values? It was
Yeah.
our first electric car 10 years ago. Is this purchase going to hinder us buying a home one day? No. So we asked our questions, and you can make them up on the spot.
Right.
But for me, this is a big piece of money mapping, is helping everyone learn how to make solid and good money decisions.
Yes.
And then the last key is you drive off the lot and then you evaluate, was this a good purchase? Are we enjoying this?
Yeah.
And you learn from it. And you
I have
maybe
3-day right of rescission, right?
exactly. Exactly. So that's part of money mapping too,
Yeah. It's the
is
post.
yes.
Very, I love it. I mean, you're speaking my language here, and especially the values base. I think we, people out there, the people that probably aren't working with us or listen to us, they don't go through that exercise of naming their top values. And then when those big decisions come up, big or small, actually, aligning that choice with what they truly value. And I think if we get more people doing this mindful exercise, they'll feel a lot more comfortable in decisions, big and small.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's different for everyone, but for many, this is a really key piece. I once worked
Yeah.
with a woman, she was corporate accounting, and so making a really high salary, too many hours, but really making a nice salary. And she was overspending and she just kept going into debt. And we just sat down and we did all the values-based stuff. So,
Yeah.
what are your values right now? What are your priorities? How are you spending? Let's look at all of your expenses and do they fit into your values and your priority? If they don't, can we let go of them? Can we get rid of them? Which ones are not negotiable? Which expenses are not? And
Right.
she pretty easily was able to unravel that overspending, and got more in alignment with her values and was able to set more intention to pay down debt and really enjoy her spending.
Yeah.
But there was a significant piece of really looking at, because
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many bookkeepers don't do their own bookkeeping. And so, right, it's okay. It's, we can manage $1 million budgets, but we're
Right.
not doing
You
our
can do it for everybody
own
else, but it's hard to do it on
personal.
yourself.
And my God, right? I've seen that for years. Listen, therapists need to go to therapists,
Therapist, yeah.
right? Bookkeepers need to do their own bookkeeping or might need to get a consultant or a coach to help them
Yeah.
work through some of the money psychology or help them set up a system that would work for their because personal finances and personal bookkeeping are so different than business bookkeeping too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. All right, Barry, this has been phenomenal. Great. I've had an awesome time. Is there anything that, we didn't touch or that you want to cover with our audience here?
Oh, just to let everyone know, they're always welcome to.
Yeah.
I have a podcast like you, I have, a blog. I send out an email every week or 2 weeks. There's tons of content if you want more.
Yeah.
And then my 2 books, The Art of Money, a life-changing guide to financial happiness.
Yes.
And the second one is The Art of Money, a workbook, and I'm working on my 3rd book.
Ooh, all
And
right.
on the Enneagram and money. I don't know if you're
Ooh.
familiar with that personality typing system.
Yeah, the 9, the Enneagram, right?
The 9
the 9
personality,
yeah.
and it's a
Personality types.
great tool for siblings, for families to not only understand their own strengths and challenges
Yeah.
and tendencies and patterns around money, but to understand in a more loving, compassionate way their siblings and their parents too. So that's one of the ways that I'm stepping into more family dynamics work is through the
So
Enneagram.
funny. In my book, in my introduction, I talk about birth order theory, and I'm a middle child, Barry. So I am the diplomat, the relationship person. And I have an older brother who's more of a leader type, and then I have a younger sister who's kind of a renegade. So I talk about birth order theory, but it's interesting. I would like to get your take on how our money stories interact with where we're at in the birth order.
Yeah, interesting. I've thought
Yeah.
about that a little bit. I'm the oldest of three. So yeah.
I
Yeah,
love
to
it.
be
Great.
continued on that. And
Yes. All
thank
right.
you so much for having me. This
Thank
was
you, Barry. I'll put all that stuff in the show notes. Then once you come out with that next book, we'll have you back on.
sounds good.
Thank you.
You.
All opinions expressed by Rob Santos and Rory Henry on this website podcast interview are solely their opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Arrowroot Family Office LLC or their parent company or affiliates, and may have been previously disseminated on television, radio, internet, or another medium. You should not treat any opinion expressed by anyone as a specific inducement to make a particular investment or follow a particular strategy, but only as an expression of their opinions. Past performance is not indicative of future results.